Or exactly.
Okay. So if you guys want to get started, we'll have some more members trickle in, but.
Sure. Right. Hello, thank you for having us here today. My name is Lauren. I am the data specialist of the Immigration Justice Project, and I'm accompanied today by my colleagues. You want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hello, my name is Dana Chavarria, Senior Paralegal Program Assistant and ISCOR grad 2015, so yeah. Last time.
What, Brad?
ISCOR. Does everyone know ISCOR?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, awesome.
Okay, I'm the one not in the know.
Yeah.
I'm Sarah Mortensen, I'm a staff attorney.
Yeah, so we're here to just talk to you about the Immigration Justice Project, what we do, and then potential internship opportunities if you're all interested. So how does the Immigration Justice Project fit into the ABA? Who's familiar with the American Bar Association? Is that okay? One person. And so I'm guessing that if you're not familiar with the ABA, you probably don't know who we are, the Immigration Justice Project, right? No, that's all right. That's why we're here, to tell you all about who we are. So the American Bar Association was founded in 1878. It's a voluntary bar association that consists of law students and lawyers, and it's not specific to any one jurisdiction in the US. The ABA's mission is to defend liberty and pursue justice. And then under the ABA, we have the Fund for Justice and Education, which is a 501c3 that supports public service, policy, and education work of the ABA. Then under the Fund for Justice and Education, there's the Commission on Immigration. The commission basically directs the ABA's efforts to ensure fair treatment and full due process rights for immigrants, asylum seekers, and refugees. And then under the Commission on Immigration, there's us, the Immigration Justice Project. We just celebrated 15 years. We've been around since 2008. And our mission is to improve public awareness of the legal system, to promote administration of justice, and provide high quality legal services. We serve all of San Diego County and Imperial County, so from the border all the way to the bottom of Riverside County and Orange County. And we have staff that serve in different locations in San Diego. So some of our staff go to the Otay Mesa Detention Center. If you're not familiar with OMDC, it's a private prison that serves ICE. So they have individuals there who are in removal proceedings and those who are awaiting trial in federal court. The current total population right now is about 1,192, which is like 200 less than what they had last week, but it's still very, very high. The top populations that are represented in there right now are Mexico, Uzbekistan, Russia, El Salvador, and Colombia. And then we have folks that go to the immigration court in downtown. That's where our staff do group and individual information sessions, and they help non-detained families and individuals in their proceedings. So our services can be broken up into 3 different buckets. We have our orientations program, our direct representation program, and pro bono. When I say pro bono, that's like a specific program, but all of our services that we provide are pro bono. So they don't cost a thing to the people that we serve. Then my colleagues can go into more detail on what our services are.
Yeah, so I'm here to tell you about the orientation programs with the Immigration Justice Project. And as many of you know or may not know, immigration court is a civil court. And so in civil court, you're not providing an attorney if you don't have representation or you're indigent. And so because of this, the legal orientation program was founded in order to provide somewhat of a stopgap for individuals in removal proceedings who don't have access to counsel. So the purpose of this program is to provide training and education for people in removal proceedings in order to help them understand what their rights are, understand the legal standards necessary to qualify for certain immigration benefits or relief, And then to answer general questions about their immigration case. Of course, we cannot provide legal advice because they're not our clients, but we do our best to help them navigate the system and have the tools they need to go before the judge should they have to appear themselves. We have 3 different programs. We can go back just a second. We have 3 different programs. The LOP program is inside the detention center. So we actually have a team that goes in 3 times a week, meets with detainees, usually groups of about 20 at a time, and provides general orientation where they provide information, about, usually the types of relief that are typically asked for in removal proceedings. So cancellation of removal, asylum, withholding, and protection under the Convention Against Torture, and other types of relief that would be asked for in removal proceedings. They also provide a bond workshop as well for people who are trying to represent themselves in immigration court to get a bond and get released. The immigration court help desk is for individuals who are not detained, but also it's a similar function where they're providing, training and other types of question and answer sessions. And then we also have the family group LOP, which provides the same services, but for families. So many times in immigration court, particularly non-detained court, you'll have groups who are consolidated into a single case. So mother and father and children will all be on one case. But there are some instances where they are separated, but that family group legal orientation program is directed to help individuals in those types of proceedings. And now my colleague Sarah Mortensen will talk about our direct representation programs.
Okay, you've been hearing a couple of phrases that probably unfamiliar to you. The first is removal proceedings. Does that ring any bells for anybody? Probably not. Okay. In immigration, there are 2 pathways to seeking any type of relief. Does relief ring any bells to anybody? Okay, relief is a term of art for accomplishing some type of benefit, some way to essentially win, for lack of a better word. Now, you can go affirmatively to the government, where you go to the government and ask for some type of relief. And that is frequently a family or employment type of relief. And that's where you will go to the USCIS and ask for something. Or the government can go after you and say, you're not in this country legally, or you've come to the border and ask for protection. And then the government puts you into a defensive posture where they're attacking you, saying, you need to prove to us why you have a right to be here. And that's where you're put into removal proceedings. Now, these removal proceedings are court, but it's not in the traditional court sense. They're administrative courts. And if you do decide to go to law school, you will learn that there are different types of courts. The Constitution breaks up courts, and you'll see an Article 3 court, and that will be the normal judicial branch, those type of courts. Now, the executive branch can also have courts, and in administrative courts, these executive branch courts, agencies can have courts. And the Department of Justice administrates immigration courts. So we practice in front of the Department of Justice. That is where we do all of our defensive type of court practice. It's the same rules, laws, whatever, it's all the same. Some things are a little bit more lax. The rules of evidence are a little bit more lax. Some of the civil procedures are a little bit more lax, but you still have to do the same types of things. It's the same bar exam is applicable, all of the rest. So that's removal, your clients are put into removal proceedings. They are called respondents rather than defendants. They're not, even though they're treated like criminals, they're not a defendant. Even though they're put in prisons, they're detainees. And they actually have fewer rights than somebody who is in a prison. It's abysmal how they are treated. Now, if they lose in this administrative court proceeding, you can appeal that, and once you have, it's another term you will learn, exhaust your administrative remedies, you can go into the federal circuit court system and appeal that all the way to the Supreme Court and get relief that way if necessary. As Dana was saying, there is no right to counsel generally. There has been some relief for people who are detained and who have been declared to not have mental capacity or incompetence for other reasons. They can be determined to be part of a Franco class. You'll learn in law school, you've heard of class actions. I'm sure everyone has seen TV shows or whatever where there are class actions. Now, if you're part of the Franco class, then you are provided counsel for your immigration case. And there, your attorney will be called a qualified representative, because there are some situations where you can be a paralegal and represent people in immigration. So in this first group here, this National Qualified Representation Program, NQRP, people who are in the Franco class will be represented by qualified representatives. This is this QR. And some of the rules are lessened for people in that area. And that's very helpful, especially because people who are incompetent find themselves in criminal situations, and so they end up in trouble. And there are almost always immigration consequences if you have crimes, and that affects your eligibility and causes so many people to have problems, and they very much need attorneys, and that's a very cyclical thing, getting QRs and their eligibility for relief. This next group, sorry, I should have backed up. For IJP, in our direct representation group, we have 3 different groups within IJP. We have our NQRP clients in our group, and we have our CCI, Counsel for Children. There are special categories for relief for children. Children don't have any special protection vis-a-vis representation. So you can have a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old having to defend themselves in court. And it's a really sad case to see a child who has to ask for asylum when they don't even have the language. They don't know how to express. They don't even know why someone might be mean to them, for lack of a better word. Persecution would be for asylum, or whatever type of torture or whatever circumstances they might find themselves. Now, in this area, there's relief for children who have been neglected or abandoned, and they can get a special immigrant juvenile status. It's a certain type of visa that they can get. It's a 2-step process that state of California or any of the other states, they can get a person this certain status, and then after that, they can go to USCIS and become, they can get a green card, and then they can become a citizen later. There are protections for asylum because if somebody is a minor, they can get it. It's interesting also for immigration, a child is considered a child until they are 21 for some things. So there are some things that are child friendly, which is great. And then this last group is a legal defense program. And San Diego has a fantastic program. Because there are so many migrants in this area, the county has a program to defend people who are in detention or who have reporting requirements to ICE. where they pay to represent clients. And so we are one of the contractees for that. And it's a fantastic contract. And so we work with people directly, why it's direct representation. We work with people in court. We get a lot of contacts. You have to consider how many people have spent everything they have, everything their families can pull together just to get to this country. And then they get thrown in prison, and then what do? They find out they have to hire an attorney, and private attorneys will charge like $10,000 or something for an asylum case. And they don't speak the language, they don't understand the processes. They don't trust, because why would they? They come to the country to ask for help, they hear about America, and they have this great human rights. And then they get thrown in prison. So it's wonderful to be able to say, look, we're not gonna charge you anything, and we are gonna do everything we can to help you. And then we also help people who have been living here and then they get arrested for whatever reason, or get in front of ICE, and so they get detained, or that they get put into removal proceedings. And we're gonna move on to our pro bono.
Yeah, so I'll talk about pro bono services in just a moment, but we've been kind of blowing through this, and this is our first time presenting, as you might guess. So I wanted to ask you, are you familiar with the agencies associated with immigration? Department of Homeland Security, heard of that? Do you know the other agencies below the department that work with immigration? Anybody? We've said USCIS. Are you familiar with USCIS? Yep. So USCIS is the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. Back before 2003, it used to just be Immigration and Naturalization Services did everything, right? But now we have it. You have Department of Homeland Security. We have this whole different security regime, and now it's broken down into different groups. So United States Citizenship and Immigration Services does things like approve applications. They do things like naturalization, as well as adjustment of status, green cards, work authorization, things like that. How about CBP? Anyone heard of CBP before? Close. Border Patrol falls under CBP, yes. Customs and Border Protection is the agency, yes. And so they're the ones who are at the ports of entry, San Ysidro. They're also the ones at the airports. They're in their dark blue uniforms. But then they're also the ones patrolling the United States border, all 1,954 miles of it. Our interactions with CBP are typically for when people are coming in doing credible fear interviews. So when you're starting the asylum process, entering the United States, you ask for asylum and you are put into what's called a credible fear interview. And this is your chance to express your fear of return to your home country. And that's usually done in CBP custody. Sometimes we're seeing right now some kind of sketchy things now that the end of Title 42, maybe you've seen some of this in the news. So right now people are being held in really kind of sketchy facilities in between the border walls. So right now there's 2 walls in between San Diego and Tijuana in certain areas, and there's putting people there with like rough tents. Little access to water, no access to medical care, very, very little access to food. So that's been a really tough situation that we're trying to bear witness to, and there's been some good reporting coming out of it, but right now, CBP is not really giving a lot of people access for good reason, because, they don't want to look bad. And so we do get some people calling into our offices looking for help with their credible fear, and we also help out with that kind of stuff as well. What about ICE? I'm sure you all have heard of ICE before. Do you know what it stands for? Exactly. So ICE is also the branch of DHS that does special investigations. They do looking into human trafficking and other types of smuggling and things like that. But they also are the enforcement arm of DHS. So if someone's dad somehow gets a notice to appear and has to be detained, ICE is gonna be the one knocking on his door. And so when we're in immigration court, the attorney is an ICE attorney. And so you have the judge, who's at the Department of Justice, and our adversary in court is the Department of Homeland Security and an ICE attorney. And so I wanted to clarify those things because we've been kind of burning through this. I want to make sure you kind of have a better understanding of what these proceedings look like, what the system kind of looks like, and then kind of what we're working with. And so the department I work in is the pro bono department at IJP. And what we do is we try to pair volunteer attorneys from various firms within the region to clients who need services. And so right now we have a big push for parole because there's a lot of people who are being put into immigration detention. And so we're trying to get them out once they pass their credible fear interview. When we're asked for parole, it's at the discretion of ICE. So it's very, very, it doesn't have a lot of hard rules.
Explain what that is.
Okay. And so people in detention, so when you come to the border and ask for asylum, if you're alone, and depending on the country you're from, there's a high likelihood that you'll be detained. So when you're in detention, you go through the credible fear interview process. And then once you pass the credible fear, you can ask for parole pretty much anytime, but you have a higher chance of getting a decision in your favor when you have a positive credible fear interview. And so getting parole is essentially getting released from detention. And that can be done occasionally on your own recognizance, depending on how the ICE officer is feeling that day. Or it could come with an amount that you would have to pay to ICE that they would hold until the conclusion of the removal proceedings or the deportation proceedings. And so requesting parole is something that we're working with a lot of volunteer attorneys right now, because there are so many people who are accessing the asylum system now that the Title 42 has ended. People are allowed to come to the port of entry, people are allowed to claim asylum, and now they're allowed to move through the process. And so part of the process is getting them out of detention, especially if they are eligible for it. So some ways that you would prove eligibility for parole are showing that they're not a flight risk. Obviously, if they're here and claiming asylum and in detention and want to fight their case, they're probably going to show up to the court hearings. And so what we do is we have them, the people detained, usually find a sponsor or have a family member or someone that they know. And that sponsor commits to providing housing, providing clothing and food, but also committing to getting them to their hearings, making sure they have transportation. And then once we're able to prove that they're not a flight risk, the second prong is to prove that they're not a danger to the community. And so, having their background check with them, some of our clients actually come with like notarized copies from the police departments in their home country. Also being able to prove, there's ICE and DHS will have a full database on just about anybody, right? They have access to all the intelligence agencies throughout the world, but unfortunately we don't. And so what we have to do is, to our best abilities, prove that these individuals are not a threat to the community. And those are the two prongs that we have to prove. So sponsorship, meaning that proving that they're not a flight risk, and then proving that they'll be able to be a safe and good person in the community. And so what we do in the pro bono department is we try to place cases with volunteer attorneys. Like I said, we're doing a lot of parole, but we also have attorneys that take on full removal cases. And these are really the all-stars of our program, because removal cases can take a really, really long time. Like right now, I'm seeing court hearings scheduled in 2027. And that's for just an initial hearing. That's not like the big final day. Because in this process, you have multiple hearings that are called master calendar hearings. And you just kind of
go to the judge, the judge tells you, I want to see this, this and this. Okay, cool. So we'll do that. And then, okay, then we'll, calendar for the next one. And then, finally you get to what's called the individual hearing. But we do have volunteer attorneys that stick with that process and help us through that. There's also ways to terminate those proceedings or get them dismissed based on the discretion of the immigration judge. And that's where they move to an affirmative posture, as Sarah mentioned before. And when you're in an affirmative posture, you go before USCIS. We have attorneys that take on those types of cases as well. They also can be long, drawn out. It could be years before you get your asylum interview. But the commitment from the volunteer attorneys in the region really show that they recognize the challenges for these individuals and they're willing to stick with it. Also because once you submit the asylum application, you kind of just wait, and renew their employment authorization and just wait for the process to come to fruition. And so there's lots of ways that that people can volunteer to help IJP. And it's not just in a legal capacity. We have a lot of people that do interpretation, translation. So we have as you saw earlier, people inside the detention center, we have a lot of different nations represented, a lot of different languages represented. And so, we have a lot of volunteers who simply provide interpretation services, which are really helpful. We also have accredited representatives. And so as Sarah mentioned before, paralegals can represent people in immigration court. I'm currently in the accreditation process with the Department of Justice. And once I complete my full accreditation, I can do just about everything an immigration attorney can do, except appeal to the Ninth Circuit. I can appeal to the BIA. I can represent people in immigration court. I can represent people before USCIS. So these are ways that our volunteers can engage as well. So if we have a volunteer who has accreditation and they want to volunteer with us because we're a recognized accredited organization, then those individuals can represent individuals in their removal proceedings as well. So those are the different ways that you can help out. But also, undergraduate students can also be supportive in doing country condition research. You can do all kinds of, even writing, legal writing, if that's something that you want to, get good strength in. These are great opportunities for people who want to dip their toes in the very, very complicated and unique world of immigration law. So the pro bono program is kind of our way of bringing the community into our organization and letting them join arms with us in our fight to give people the access to due process they deserve. Lauren here is going to talk a little bit about our operations, and then we'll take some questions.
Yeah, so you've heard a lot about legal side of what we do, but since we're a nonprofit, we also have our administrative operational side, which is what I'm in. I'm the data specialist. So as Sarah mentioned earlier, we have our legal defense program and it's funded by the county. So what we have is we need a contract to work with them. And as part of that contract, we have certain requirements that we need to meet. So my boss, who's the director of contracts and operations, works with the county to make sure that we're in accordance with everything that they require of us. And then she reaches out to me every month to pull data reports on the clients that we serve. And in order for us to have good data and show the county what we do, our staff needs to provide that information in our case management system. So it's kind of like a loop. So the county helps us get funding, but we need to provide them with information. And then we need that from our staff. So that way the county can continue to fund us for what we do. So yeah, we have our contracts, our data, office management. So in order for our staff to do their jobs, we have office staff who provide us with materials. And then even front desk staff, they serve as the first point of contact. So when we have clients that call or come into the office, they're the ones who delegate the calls and all of those meetings. So if you decide you potentially want to intern with us, you would be helping us out on the operations side with case management, potentially writing up contracts for vendors, researching different funding opportunities. You'd help me with our archive. We have a large, insane amount of physical files that we have to audit, basically, because not everything is digital yet. The courts love physical files. They love paper. So you'd be helping me with going through all of those files, making sure that there are no original documents that we are holding. And if so, then we have to get them to our clients. And basically just making sure that everything is digitized in our system. And then you'd potentially be helping with answering phones in the event that our front desk staff is unavailable, helping out with translation services if you know another language. And then, yeah, potential for helping out with country conditions. You'd also get the chance to work with a paralegal and an attorney on a case if you want to dip your toes into seeing how that process plays out. So there's plenty of opportunities to kind of figure out what you want to do in immigration. So if you are interested, you can follow us on Instagram and then find us on LinkedIn. And then if you want to intern with us potentially, you can send your resume and like a quick little cover letter to contact@abaijp.org. It's also on the top right-hand corner of the flyer. So yeah, any questions? What our favorite colors are, anything?
Yeah, just for everyone wondering here, is the internship paid for?
Unfortunately, it's not. We would love to pay our interns, but it all comes down from the ABA. So unfortunately, not at the moment, but I know that there are like different ways that you can get paid from SDSU, like if you apply for something. I've been told that before, just based on semesters. We'll write letters of recommendation for you all. It would look really good on your resumes if you apply to law school saying that, hey, I worked under the ABA IJP. That would look good.
So if we do decide to apply for the internship, can we get class credit for it?
That I don't know. You'd have to talk to like maybe your department chair. I mean, yeah, I think.
Oh, yeah, so we can get class credit, but I think someone from the firm or our superior would need to help us like write letters or weekly check-ins.
Okay, yeah.
So with that,
Yeah, so internships are based on, like, there's a class credit component that goes with it, so yeah, we would make sure to cover the bases and make sure that you get credit for the work that you do, and yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
When does the internship start?
So it's by semesters. We have our spring internship cohort that starts like mid-January after the MLK holiday. And it's roughly like 10 to 16 weeks max. So, I mean, it's up to you how long between 10 to 16 weeks you want to go for. And then we'll take like, I don't know how many couple weeks break, and then summer session will start. So it's by semesters.
Is it like in the afternoon, on the weekend?
Oh, no, so it would be like, any days, Monday through Friday. We're only open in the office from like 9 AM to about 4:30 PM. So it would be during like the day.
Thanks.
Does anyone have any questions about like career stuff or applying to law school? The bar exam?
How we got to where we are.
I was gonna ask that actually, how did you guys get to where you are now?
So we all have different interesting stories. So I'm an SDSU alum, but I majored in child and family development. So pretty different from what I'm doing now. But I'm a master at pivoting. So I did child development and then decided I still wanted to do good work, but I wasn't gonna be a teacher. So then I became a librarian, and then I got tired of that, but I still wanted to do good work. And so that's when I found IJP.
Yeah, so I started my career in broadcasting. So I was a student at City College and Mesa College, and I kind of stuck in the back door to work in radio. And so I worked at Channel 933 for a while. I worked for KGB, pretty much all of the local stations, because they're all in one building. And then it was a very interesting time in radio where everything was kind of getting consolidated and the music, you don't get to choose the music. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to like, hey, this awesome band, you gotta listen to it. And they're like, no, you can't. No, it's NSYNC. Okay, you just push the NSYNC button. So so I did that for a little while and then I got out and it took me a while to, because I had stopped going to school because I was like, oh, I'm already in the thing I want to do, right? So I started traveling. I started you know, going to different places around the world, Europe, Asia, and then I started looking at different cultures and getting a better understanding for my culture here back at home. And then when I came back, I was working in restaurants. And in restaurants, I started working alongside individuals with mixed immigration status. And so that's when it kind of started to click for me when my friend Alejandro couldn't go to Disneyland. I was like, why can't you go to Disneyland? He's like, because there's a checkpoint. It's like, oh shit. Like, that sucks. And so so that's when it kind of put me on the path to, all right, I'm gonna go back to school. I'm gonna try something different. And you know, I said I was class of 2015. I was like, yeah, that's when I was 35, you know. So I graduated way late and because it took me a long time to figure out what I really wanted to do. And then I went to, once I graduated here, I went to the University of San Diego's Peace and Justice Studies program. I graduated there in 17. And when I was studying there, I did a lot of research in northern Mexico, particularly on violence and discrimination against women. And so that's when it really, you know, I really like fueled my passion for working in immigration. And my advisor there was on the board of IJP, and he's like, you'd be perfect fit. And I've been here for almost 6 years now, and I really like it. It's great. How about you, Sarah?
Mine is more varied because I'm older. My undergrad was in public relations. I wanted to do like First Amendment stuff at first. And the summer between college and law school, I had an internship doing communications PR type stuff at the Department of Energy. And it was for a transuranic waste disposal site. And I know it's bizarre, but I just kind of fell in love with that because they're cleaning up the nuclear world and swords into plowshares kind of thing. And I just fell in love with doing environmental work and essentially the defense nuclear world. And so then I pivoted and I still got my law degree, of course. And then I worked in that world and I worked for around the Department of Energy. I worked for the Defense Nuclear Facilities Safety Board. We had oversight over the Defense Nuclear Complex and worked in their OGC, the Office of General Counsel, and worked around that world for a while. And then this was back in DC. And then in like 2015-ish, somewhere in there were a bunch of children who came across the border and like 2,900 of them came to the DC area. And the bar, and I took the Maryland bar, the Bar Association said, if you guys will take a case, we'll train you on how to do SIDGE cases. That's that. I was talking about the child cases. That was that area. And I'm just like, yeah, of course. Like these kids come across the border alone and then they get shipped to some strange place. And so I was like, sure. So then I took that and so I did a couple of just pro bono cases. Like immigration had never been on my radar. It just wasn't part of my world. I liked what I was doing. And then during the Trump administration, I moved here. And not to get political, but I was very angry during that time about what was going on politically and moving to a border community and seeing everything that was going on. I was very pissed off and there's no defense nuclear stuff down here. And I met somebody who was working in the nonprofit area doing immigration, and she didn't have any experience in this area. And so she asked if I could help, and I would work with her. So I started volunteering in there, and then she offered me a job. And so I started working in it full time and having it back. So I think it shows all of us like flexibility, keep your mind open and follow whatever drives you, like you don't be too rigid in anything. A lot of the personality that does law tends to be a little bit more rigid, and being an organized mind is necessary for law. Not to say like being ADD doesn't work, because I'm ADD, but just be flexible to adapt to whatever is going on, because in this world, you gotta be adaptable because everything is changing. The world is always changing. Any other questions? The new.
I know you're talking about offering the administrative intern position, but you mentioned like a legal writing potential possibility for like undergrad students, or is that more for like law students?
Yeah, so with our undergrad, we really want to make sure that we're meeting your needs, while also addressing some of the needs that we have. But we want this to be an experience that's fulfilling for any intern. So if you're interested in doing, if you want to be more hands-on with cases, or do more, in the legal realm, or get an understanding of how the nonprofit community works, or the nonprofit immigration community works, indicate that. The way that we are able to serve our interns, particularly because at this time we don't have funding to pay you, we want to make sure that this is an experience that you're going to get value from, and also feel good about the work that you do. So that's really important to us.
I know with my interns at the very beginning, I always sit down and ask them what they want to get out of it. So I have my needs, but as Dan was saying, we want to make sure that the intern gets something out of the experience too. So we try to meet both of those goals.
Yeah, I'm still learning legal writing. It's something that it's a muscle that you're always going to continue exercising. And, getting an early start, when I did my internship, I interned with an immigration firm, and I was learning how to do DACA, and it wasn't really full on like writing briefs or anything like that, because it's not really in court, but I was writing cover letters before USCIS and kind of presenting an argument to USCIS why this person deserves DACA.
And explained how long a cover letter can be.
Yeah, a cover letter can be 2 pages long, or it can be, like I just wrote one that was like, what, that you so it was like 22 pages.
That was really long. It's hard to know because you had so many exhibits that went with it too.
Yeah, so, there's.
And the better you are, you'll start small until someone gets to know your skill level. And then it gets to the point where the one he's just talking about, I was out of the country and I was able to forget about it and let Dana do it all. And then as I'm getting back in the country, we're talking about it, and I just was able to trust him. And for me to let go of I call it my pen, because it's my name, it's my bar. But to trust somebody else with it is big, but I can trust him. Like, I know that I can say, hey, you laugh, but it's a really big thing, because I can lose my bar. And that's my ability to make money. Besides the client, and every single one, you don't live in San Diego and work for a nonprofit unless you're committed to what you're doing, because you don't make money.
Yeah, it's true. But also, when you're working in this field, particularly nonprofit immigration law, you really pour all of your heart into these clients. The client that we had, huge criminal history. There's a lot of, bad things on his record, but he was a victim of domestic abuse. And
At minimum.
yeah, exactly. Among other things, but you still have to recognize that people aren't the person that they are on the worst day of their life. You know, and with these clients, we really pour all of our heart into their work. Do you have a question?
Actually,
And then we'll get to you next.
I have two questions. The first is quick. Does IJP have any like presence in other jurisdictions, like other states too, that border Mexico? Like Texas or New Mexico, Arizona?
So we have a sister organization called Probar in Texas.
got it.
They are bigger than us because they've been around longer, but they're our sister company, so
Okay.
Probar, yeah.
We really need to have one in Arizona because
We'll get there,
they're
Yeah.
so
we'll get there. I mean,
not immigration friendly that they really need to have somebody there.
when I started at IJP, we had 8 people. Now we have 28.
Okay.
So the funding is there. The ability for growth is there, and we would really like to see this project expand into places like Arizona and even New Mexico. But right now, Probar has got a big presence in Texas and they do really good work. There's also what is it, Children's Immigration Law Academy, is that what it is?
Yeah,
CELA.
CELA.
So they also have another branch in Texas as well. So there's Probar, CELA, and then us. So we're hopeful that as we, continue to prove our worth and the more word spreads, we can get more funding to do projects in other jurisdictions. What was your other question?
My second question might be a little bit longer. I was wondering how privilege and work product impacts the kind of immigration side, immigration court versus like, obviously privilege exists for like attorney-client privilege and like the regular court
Oh, I
system.
thought you were talking like.
No. I meant like attorney-client privilege and
Like that's
and,
so
like,
loaded.
and implications through like work product in there, because like obviously the court system is different, so do those rules differ between the types of
Same
courts?
rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's difficult though, because he was talking about these credible fear interviews, which, not to get too far into the weeds of it all, but when somebody comes to border, if they express a fear of returning to their country, then they're entitled to at least get to the next stage, which is to start like the asylum process. And that should be this interview where they can talk about their fear. And if that fear is determined to be credible, then they can get into the removal court system. But that interview then has them talking about all of the stuff that has happened in their home country. So they've already talked about bunch of stuff. And by that point, they haven't usually been able to get any counsel. So they're talking about a bunch of personal information without any representation. And they might have given away things that they shouldn't have given away, but they didn't know that because they haven't had any counsel. And like, there are a bunch of things that get discussed, like even proving alienage is a thing, which means the government is supposed to prove that they're not a US citizen. And someone might automatically just say, oh yeah, I'm from this country, so like they've already said it or given away information.
And then that information gets shared with ICE. Yeah, and they go into the
Right.
removal proceedings. So
Even
even though that's
though
with
the different-
USCIS,
Mm.
even though they're doing the CFI with the credible fear interview with USCIS, after that's done, when they're putting the removal proceedings, they're like, here's all the info they shared. It's like, oh, great.
They're all DHS.
Yeah.
It's different parts of DHS, but sometimes they'll be like, oh, I don't know, that's USCIS. But then other times, all of a sudden, they have all the information. And they pick and choose. And it's ICE that has all of their, like there's ICE ERO are the people that do all the detention. They're the
That's enforcement and
deportation
removal
officers, right? And then there's ICE OPLA, who are the attorneys for the government. or-
Office of the Principal Legal Advisor.
Yeah, and it's,
Acronyms.
everything's
It's
acronyms.
alphabet soup.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It just takes so long if you actually try to. If you really want to know them, I'm happy to go through them all, but. Know them all. I don't want to know them all.
And what was your question?
Oh, yeah. So, I've done my research and on the internet, Man, I don't believe the internet, but they say, they say, hey, don't apply to, don't go to law school because you won't be making any money. It's really hard to get a job. You gotta get into a good law firm. And it smells like it's not true, so I like to ask the professionals.
It's just like in anything else, there's a scale, you know, I mean. It's. What you do with it, where you get a job afterwards, and. Well, first you gotta pass the bar. And once you pass the bar, then where do you get a job and what do you make with that job? You can get a job in a private firm and it can be a firm of 1 or a firm of 200. I would do internships to find out things that you like. Like when I was in law school, I did internships with the government. I interned at the Department of Justice. This is back when I wanted to do environmental stuff. Well, I did do environmental stuff. So I was in environmental enforcement. So I did that kind of thing. I was in a big firm. I did nonprofit. And I did a company. So I did everything that the only thing I didn't do was a court. But I did everything else to see what I liked. I hated a big firm. I was so bored. It drove me nuts. I hated everything about a big firm. To me, it was soul sucking. Like I didn't care about making someone money. Like that just didn't inspire me at all. I have to care about what I'm doing. Like I have to care about the mission. It has to be something bigger than me to matter. So like I mean, I have a tattoo here from Dr. Seuss. It's like unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. So like everything about me is just like about my existence has to matter. Other people, this is not how they're made, and that's just fine. Like my son graduated from law school a year ago and he does criminal defense. He's all about making money. I don't know where it got lost in translation, but it doesn't matter. Like he's all about money. That's how it is. And that's fine. It's just, you have to find what works for you. What is it gonna make you willing to work? Like if you work in a big firm, you're gonna have to bill 2,500 hours a year. And it's not working those hours, it's billing. And that's a very different thing. So you just gotta figure out what works. I mean, some people can make bank and some people don't do well. Like if you hang your own shingle, which means working for yourself, it's hard unless you're a great salesman because you have to go and drum up business. I would make no money because I can't sell anything. I could never go out and drum up business and then go collect the money. Like that I would die. I could not ever do that. But I love nonprofit. I liked when I did that in school. When I worked in the government general counsel's office, I really liked that. I mean, I did a lot of stuff on the Hill. I worked in a lead agency. Like we are all accepted service. We went all over the country going to. I mean, I loved our mission. I liked all of that. I liked working at the firm and general counsel's office there. I just didn't want to stay. It was in Utah, and I didn't want to stay in Utah. I don't know, you just have to find what works for you. So, yeah, I mean, sure, you could go broke and you can make bank.
One thing I'll add to that is, if you do want to get into the legal profession, really work hard on your LSATs. Really, really work hard on those.
Yeah, that is.
The higher
incredible.
your LSAT score, not only will you get into a better law school, but you'll also have the opportunity to get scholarships. I'm sure all of you know law school is expensive AF. My wife's an attorney. Her loans are, we call it, she has a house brain. Because her loans are the equivalent of a house loan.
That is one thing about nonprofit. If you work for a nonprofit for 10 years, you can get your loans picked up.
Yeah, you get your loans forgiven. And that was the next point I was gonna bring up. There's public service loan forgiveness, at least while it still exists. Work 10 years, you get your loans forgiven. And that's huge.
And it's a great experience while you're doing it. I
6
mean,
years,
it's not
yeah.
like it's.
But yeah, you know, if the legal profession is something that you want to do, really, really work hard on your LSATs, take the classes, do the tutoring.
Absolutely. I taught
Get
Kaplan
mentors.
for several, I mean, this is not a sales pitch for Kaplan. but I taught Kaplan at 3 different occasions. And it's well worth it. I didn't take Kaplan and I wish I had taken it. I mean, I did great. I mean, my LSAT score is what got me into law school. Was not my grades. But I still wish I had taken it. I would put the time into it. Yeah.
How does your like company culture different from Big Law? Like how many hours a week do you all kind of work?
I'm capped.
What?
I feel like everyone's kind of capped, like we have to work 37.5.
Yeah,
We're supposed to.
but. Yeah, we're supposed to work 37.5, but it depends on if you have a filing deadline too, or if you have. I think you were talking about like the final hearing, that's called an individual or a merits hearing. And if you're prepping for that, then you're gonna work more, but it depends. But IGP is great in some things. We have a couple of things like the
Self-care.
yeah, self-care.
Self-care, yeah.
Every month they give us 4 hours to just do whatever.
Yep. Yeah.
Just take care of yourself because it's such a burdensome, draining kind of, because you're dealing with people's trauma a lot. I worked in a nonprofit in the same area in a different one. Before. We didn't get any of that type of thing. And it does get draining, because some of it is rough and it gets hopeless. Some of the laws.
But I mean, our firm compared to, I mean, I worked in private practice for a while and our firm compared to that is just, I mean, I think it's just because we're so team oriented as opposed to private practice where it's a little bit more like individual success. We are all working together. We're very collaborative. You know, I have people reaching out to me for help all the time. I reach out to all kinds of different associates for help all the time because there's people in our firm who have experience in certain areas that others don't, and we all kind of group together. I mean, you know, this afternoon, every Wednesday, we have a direct rep meeting where everyone kind of puts their heads together, like, hey, I'm working through this challenge, like this client has this, and this, and I got this criminal history, like what are some things I can throw at this case, and like then there's person like chiming in like, oh, I had something similar and I did this, and I looked at this law and like this law kind of parsed it out, and they're like, oh wow, it's huge, you know. And I really think that IJP has a really collegial relationship with the staff. I think everyone just really enjoys working with each other, and we're all very mission driven. I mean, you know, as I said, I've worked there for 6 years and I've seen, you know, ups and downs and been treated certain ways, and like, you know, you just kind of like look through that, and like, you know, when you're focused on and helping people and helping the success of your clients, it be your, you know, number one goal. All the kind of like the menial stuff just kind of like sloughs off, you know, and I don't know.
There's good and bad everywhere.
Yeah.
I did work somewhere after law school. Because I didn't decide like on the environmental stuff till afterwards, like my undergrad wasn't gonna help me. And so I had to go back and get a master's. And I was working full time. I'm like, I'm already done school full time twice. I don't want to do it again. So I did my master's at night. And so I was working full time and getting my master's at night, and my bosses came and they said, you're too expensive. We need you to bill more. And so I was just dying because I'm already working so much, and they're like, I work more. And there's none of this, you only work a 40-hour week crap. So that's private.
It's really important to have balance. You know, you can make all the money in the world, but if you're working all the time, you don't get to play with it. You know, you don't get to spend it. You know, and I may not make a huge salary, but I make enough to survive, and I cover my bills, and to, you know, go out every once in a while, and I enjoy my life though. You know, I work 37.5 hours, and at the end of 7.5 each day, I get to go home and hang out with my wife and my kid, and like I'm not like working into the night. I'm not stuck at the office into the night. You know, that's huge. You know, you can't put a price on that. And especially, as I mentioned before, having a, you know, such a cool office, such a cool group of people to work with, like, that's also like payment too, because you have a very low stress job, you have a very low stress office environment. You know, like have this like boss looking over your shoulder, like, are you billing enough hours? It's like, you know, like I've seen that happen in
Or
firms.
lack of a dress code.
Yeah, even
yeah,
our, I
real.
mean, this is the
The
most
first
that I
6
ever got
months,
that.
I wear a suit like every single day and then I have slowly like gone down to like this and I don't even wear makeup or wear anything unless I have court.
No,
It's pretty,
We joke around that it's
Yeah.
like courtroom Barbie. And like court issues.
no, for real, like I came to work today and I was dressed a certain way. I was like, oh man, the presentation at state today, like I went home and changed because I was like in jeans and a sweatshirt, like,
usually tennis shoes and jeans.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty chill.
I'm sorry, I didn't respect you enough.
I don't know, you're wearing a sweater at least. I was wearing like a David
Yeah.
Bowie sweatshirt. Like, it's definitely not professional.
Cause it was raining, I was so excited to have weather.
Yeah, same.
Anything
Yeah.
else?
We're actually just about out of time.
Oh, okay.
But thank you guys again, and if you want to add your personal contacts for any of our members, you guys are welcome to do that afterwards. I think we have some time, you guys can mingle afterwards if you want. If anyone has questions about the internship, I'm sure if you guys have the time, then you guys can ask them personally. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. Give you a round of applause.
Thank you all for being here and also for such good questions. It's fun.
Thank you guys.
And if you didn't get one of these flyers but want one, they're up here.
End of our meeting technically, if you guys have paid dues and haven't gotten a shirt yet, come talk to me, and you guys haven't paid dues yet, come talk to me.
Pay your dues.
So otherwise. Yes. Have you paid your dues? Yes.